Greetings, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad you're here. Tonight, we're going to talk about Carlos Cook's ideas on Ethiopia, Haiti, Liberia, Kenya, the Black woman, naive Africans, and civil rights.
Greetings. My name is the Revolutionary Matron, and my show is called The Learning Curve. I broadcast on a network called KWAZ Radio. There are other hosts on the network I'd like you to meet.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-Black perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed here belong solely to the respondent, and they do not necessarily reflect any broadcast networks, affiliates, nor sponsors. The Learning Curve is a broadcast created for the benefit of my global community. Black is a consciousness. Content is being used for our commentary, research, criticism, education, scholarship, teaching, preaching, and news reporting. No copyright infringement is intended. I will make enunciation mistakes. I will give you my opinion about the information. And if you ever ask, I will send you my source.
Greetings to the Forecast Radio and the Pro Black Perspective. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Ethiopia, Haiti, Liberia, Kenya, and the Black woman. One cause, one goal, one destiny. The time is at hand when the Black man must pause and take serious note of the rapid current of world events. Life for the people of African stock has been for the past 3 centuries a relentless struggle for survival. It has rarely been against the forces of nature. No, nature blessed the African race with the richest of all continents and the finest of all climates. It has equipped the Black man with the greatest and most rugged physique among men, together with a woman whose wholesome beauty, sparkling eyes, rhythmic gait, warm and tender smile, and cheerful and affectionate disposition cannot be excelled or rivaled by any other female. The Black man's menace has been and still is the white man's diabolical and determined plan to commit genocide. Even as they exterminated American Indians and the Australian Aborigines, so too every plan, every scheme points to their murderous intent to liquidate the African people. African nationalism is the antidote to the white man's plan of genocide for the African people. Prior to the Sudanese reestablishing their national independence on January 1st, 1956, the white man dominated and exploited the Black world with the exception of Ethiopia, Haiti, and Liberia. Ethiopia, under the leadership of Haile Selassie, is a futile encumbrance on the design of a modern free Africa. Haiti was under America's imperialism from 1935 to the 1950s. A genuine Black government is emerging again, but it is encountering economic sanctions and political isolation by the USA. Haiti is a black dot in the white sea, similar to a fly in a bowl of milk. Liberia is an extension of white imperialism. It has a group of black expatriates from the USA and the West Indies forming a clique, the Americo-Liberians, of dictatorial leaders fronting for white imperialism. The white people's sinister and diabolical plans and schemes to liquidate the African people have been foiled again and again by our ancestors, and we are being called upon to foil their present plans and schemes to liquidate us. Marcus Garvey gave us the philosophy and program to foil all plans and schemes to liquidate African people. The philosophy and program is African nationalism, which Black people must embrace and express to save themselves. Mr. Garvey did so many wonderful things and wrote so many dynamic and wonderful articles. However, the one that stands most prominent is African fundamentalism. This is a relatively brief essay, yet it is the most informative, educational, inspirational, instructive, and constructive article ever written in the history of the world. In one paragraph, Marcus Garvey gives you the comparative history of Black and white people. They have sprung from the same family tree of obscurity as we have. Their history is as rude in its primitiveness as ours. Their ancestors ran wild and naked, lived in caves and in branches of trees like monkeys, just as ours. They made sacrifices, ate flesh of their own dead and the raw meat of wild beasts for centuries, even as they accuse us of doing. Their cannibalism was more prolonged than ours. When we were embracing the arts and sciences on the banks of the Nile, their ancestors were still drinking human blood and eating out of the skulls of their conquered dead. When our civilization had reached noonday, the noonday of progress, they were still running naked and sleeping in holes and caves with rats, bats, and other insects and animals. We had already unfathomed the mysteries of the stars and reduced the heavenly constellations to minute and regular calculus. They were still backwoodsmen, living in ignorance and blatant darkness. Ethiopia. Many historians, anthropologists, and ethnologists hold that Ethiopia is the source of civilization on the Nile. The Blue Nile began in modern Ethiopia. The country had long been a nation before Adam and Eve of the Holy Bible. Ethiopia existed before the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian gods. Prior to the installment of the impostor Haile Selassie, Ethiopia's royal family had the oldest lineage in the world. 3,000 years stretched between the rule of Menelik I and Menelik II. Menelik II died in 1913 after a most illustrious career as a soldier, statesman, and diplomat of the highest level. He is classified as the greatest and foremost figure of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In 1884, the European powers met at Berlin, Germany to determine the colonial conquest of Africa. So they knew about the Berlin Conference in the 50s and 60s. Menelek's greatness derived from his triumph against the odds. He was torn by family dissension, harassed by rebellious provincial chieftains within Ethiopia, and beset by the colonial powers of Europe. Menelik II reached an agreement with the dominant leader within his family, defeated the other regional authorities, and intermarried his family with the families of leading provincial chieftains. Finally, he emerged as the absolute ruler of Ethiopia. So he was saying, you get a wife and you get a wife. Menelik II had begun the modernization and economic development of Ethiopia. He abolished slavery, established courts of justice, regulated customs, duties, and taxes. He introduced railways and telegraphs. He started a postal system and negotiated treaties with foreign nations. Italy and England thought this was too much independence for Ethiopia and that Menelek's development of Ethiopia would hinder their colonial conquest for Africa. And this is where I think where I feel like they sold out the rest of Africa. Menelik had signed a peace treaty with Italy in which there was a dispute in the meaning of one word. According to Menelik, the word was may. According to Italy, the word was must. This was in reference to a statement in the treaty which said Ethiopia may consult Italy in foreign affairs and international development, as read by Menelik II. Italy interpreted the statement to say that Ethiopia must consult Italy on such matters. This led to the Great War known as the Battle of Adawa, where Menelik II defeated, slaughtered, and castrated the Italians in 1896. The world was forced to recognize and respect Ethiopia's integrity and independence until Menelik II's death in 1913. Menelik did not have a son, but he had a grandson who succeeded him as regent and his mother, Menelik II's daughter, as empress. The European colonial powers did not relent and kept harassing Ethiopia. Menelik II's grandson, Lil Jesus, constantly fought them and threatened to join the revolutionary forces of Sudan and Egypt against the colonial powers of Europe. Ethiopia was a Christian nation, while the Sudan and Egypt claimed to be Muslim nations. Fearing that Ethiopia might convert into a Muslim nation under Lil Jesus, England decided to sponsor a coup in Ethiopia and picked a younger officer in the Ethiopian army to head the rebellion. This officer was named Rastafari. Rastafari was the son of an Ethiopian general, Ras Met, who fought with Menelik II. It is said that his mother was a Greek whose family lived in Ethiopia, while his father was a descendant of the Yemenites who had migrated to Ethiopia. Rastafari was in no way related to Menelik II or any part of the royal family. Greetings, Sister Ra. How are you tonight? England trained and equipped an army led by the Rastafari who defeated and captured Lil Jesus, whose life was temporarily spared due to an appeal by his mother, the Empress, who turned the regency over to Rastafari. Lil Jesus died in prison, and Rastafari decided to become the absolute ruler of Ethiopia. Rastafari promoted a coronation in 1930 where he crowned himself Haile Selassie, Emperor of Ethiopia. Incidentally, no African nations were invited to the coronation of Haile Selassie or its Haile Selassie, because that is just what he is, a highly silly ass. Between 1933 and 1935, that rot-gut scumbag spaghetti-eating bastard Mussolini began calling for the revenge of Adawa. Mussolini began building airfields, roads, and staging areas in Somaliland for the invasion of Ethiopia. Selassie, or Selassie, whatever you want to call him, refused to prepare the Ethiopians for war. He used a lot of religious hokum on the Ethiopian masses. He told them that God would protect them and would order the bees, flies, hornets, and other insects to attack the Italians. Selassie falsely attached himself to the royal family of Ethiopia. The European colonial powers sold him as the Prince of Peace mentioned in the Holy Bible, which stated, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands and princes shall come out of Ethiopia riding white horses. They dressed Selassie up like a prince and put him on a white horse, and that was enough to convince the Bible mentality Negroes the world over. Mussolini did invade Ethiopia. He dropped bombs and poison gas and used dum-dum bullets on Ethiopians. The Pope of Rome blessed Mussolini's troops, bombs, and poison gas that were used to invade Ethiopia. The Pope ordered Catholic women to relinquish their wedding rings to help pay the cost of Italy's invasion. Although the Ethiopians fought heroically and carried on the resistance until Allied forces of Europeans assisted in defeating the Italians in 1944, Haile Selassie, or Haile Selassie, did not commit his army to fight Italy. The resistance was carried on by provincial chieftains who used guerrilla warfare. Selassie's trip to England during the war should be well remembered. There was only one railroad from Addis Ababa to Djibouti on the Red Sea. The Italians captured the railroad extending from the Ethiopian border. Yet Haile Selassie and his family and servants, their wardrobes, pots, pans, and 40 tons of gold boarded the train at Addis Ababa and went through Italian lines to the Red Sea. They got on a British battleship and sailed to England, where they stayed for the duration of the war. Incidentally, Selassie never did get the gold back. Marcus Garvey tried to warn the race about Haile Selassie. He wrote several articles in the Black Man magazine about Selassie's antics. The European colonial powers recognized the Bible mentality of the majority of Africans and decided to sponsor Haile Selassie as the leader of the Black people. They brought him to England for the duration of the war. Marcus Garvey met a mysterious death on June 10, 1940. The way was made clear for Haile Selassie as the staking horse of European colonialism, thereby making Ethiopia a futile encumbrance on the designs of a modern free Africa. And those were his thoughts on that. Greetings, Brother Bakari. Greetings, Black Magus. I'm so glad you're here. Haiti. Haiti is an African nation in the Caribbean sharing an island with another nation, the Dominican Republic. The western third of the island is Haiti. Jean-Jacques Dessalines gave the country its name after he led its army to victory over the forces of Napoleon Bonaparte, the French general ruler. In 1803, Jean-Jacques Dessalines ripped the white from the tricolor French flag and brought the colors red and blue together to represent a free and independent Haiti. Prior to the coming of the white man, this island belonged to the red people who had inhabited the island for at least 3,000 years. In 1492, Columbus landed on this island where he announced the discovery of America. You know the old story. In 1492, Columbus discovered America. Well, in 1929, I discovered New York, but there were already 8 million people here when I did. There were 49 million so-called Indians in America when Columbus discovered it. Columbus headed a Spanish expedition and renamed the Red People's Island Hispaniola. The Spanish were the first Europeans to settle on the island, but they were soon contested by France and England. Spain and France were victorious in the battle for Hispaniola, with Spain taking the east and France taking the west. The Europeans exterminated the original inhabitants of the island of the Red People. As you know, at the time, the Pope of Rome and other white leaders had ordered their people to kidnap and enslave in the name of Jesus Christ. The island had made a chief slave center during the African slave trade. The Europeans would buy and obtain our people from the Arab slave marauders and from the infamous slave raids. Africans were loaded aboard ships and brought to Haiti and the Americas to serve as chattel property for white people. The island was a major slave center until the black slaves outnumbered the white slave owners 5-1. The Africans had been carrying on resistance since their arrival on the island. They were able to wage a successful armed rebellion and establish Haiti as the first Black republic in 1803. Among the many great warriors and patriots for Haitian independence, 4 men stand out. Number one, Bookman, born in Bookman in 1790 and 1791. He inspired the blood oath or the Sacre and was one of the first martyrs of freedom in Haiti. Louverture, leader from 1793 to 1803, was a brilliant soldier and statesman. He tried to negotiate with the white slavers for the freedom and civil rights of Africans. He was lured by the French and taken prisoner. He died in a French prison dungeon in the Alps. To his credit, he built a professional Black army. Dessalines was emperor of Haiti from 1803 to 1804. Jacques I proclaimed Haiti free and independent in 1803. He was a general of the army of Louverture, and he did not share Louverture's views of civil rights, but he desired to see a free and independent Haiti. After the capture and punishment and imprisonment of Louverture, Dessalines led his army of organized men in slavery to victory over Napoleon Bonaparte and France, and he declared Haiti the first Black republic, free and independent. And lastly, there's Christophe, a soldier and a builder, had been a general of the army of Louverture along with Dessalines. Dessalines was murdered in 1804. Haiti was divided with Henry Christophe, a Black, in charge of the north, and Alexander Pétion, a mulatto, in charge of the south. Christophe built the eighth wonder of the world, La Ferrie Fortress, the most impressive structure ever to be conceived by man since the beginning of civilization. It stands today at 3,000 feet above the sea, straddling the mountain peak of Cap Haitien. Christophe brought Haiti out of the vicissitudes of slavery and the plantationism, making his country an economic entity in the Western Hemisphere. He made Haiti the envy of the Americas because he built the country into a sphere of trade and commerce. Haiti is the symbol of Latin America's Libre. Solomon Bolivar, the father of Latin America's liberation, was based in Haiti, from where he launched the revolution. Simon Bolivar was a Black man. Alexander Sucre, a Black, was the field marshal of Bolivar's army and liberated Latin Americans. The Louisiana Territory in the USA was under the domination of France, and many Africans were in captivity in the Louisiana Territory when Haiti won its independence. They had contact with the victors in Haiti. Fearful of losing the land to Africans in the Louisiana Territory, France made a quick deal with the American government, which brought the land for a pittance. The Louisiana Territory stretched from the Gulf of Mexico to the Canadian border, extended from the Mississippi River westward to the Rocky Mountains, and covered roughly an area equal to the United States of that day. In the 20th century, it would cover nearly 14 of the middle states of the USA. The acts of the Black liberators of Haiti in 1803 broke the backbone of slavery and white supremacy. This made Haiti the scorn of the white world, which conducted a continuous war of embargoes, interventions, and harassment, thereby keeping the society unstable and in conflict to this very day. Haiti was a black dot in a white sea, a fly in a bowl of milk, and a marked contradiction to white supremacy. 100 years later, The colonization of Africa was in its final stage. The KKK had just reclaimed the southern states of the USA. The white government in the United States of America decided to remove the last symbol of Black freedom and dignity in the Americas by invading Haiti. The USA occupied the Black Republic from 1915 to 1935. During this period, the USA constructed the machinery for its imperialistic control of Haiti after occupation. The United States imperialism experienced a rough time, and finally, here in 1956, we are going to have a genuine Black government, which could be the chief of the Black Revolution. This fellow, Dr. Duvalier, Dr. Duvalier seems to be a very well-grounded African nationalist. His economic policies as minister of the past Haitian government portend economic prosperity for Haiti. He is a national hero in Haiti as a doctor. He eradicated yaws in the country, and his papers are a Bible for those working to eradicate disease throughout the world. He definitely seems to have the resourcefulness, nobility, and courage that once typified African character. He says that he sleeps in the tomb of Dessalines. The USA and Europe are gearing to apply economic embargoes, political isolation, and other harassments against Haiti. The white people will fail this time. Dr. Duvalier is going forward. So as you can see, he had hope for Haiti, but Haiti is still under the thumb of U.S. imperialism to this day. Liberia. Liberia is a country in West Africa. It was founded by the American Colonization Society, a white organization originating in 1817 in the USA, as a home for those Africans freed from captivity in the USA. Liberia was the overseas branch of the society. The first returnees arrived in 1822. Due to pressure from the integrationists and the Abolition Society, the American Colonization Society was abolished in 1847, the same year Liberia was declared an independent republic. The early advocates and first returnees were sincere. However, over the course of years, the returnees who were Africans returning from the slavery in the United States of America and the West Indies became the cruel, murdering, dominating taskmasters that rival and in some cases excel the Arab and European slave owners. These returnees formed a clique known as the Americo-Liberians, and only the Americo-Liberians could hold political office and head important economic and social positions. While we had outstanding personalities like Paul Coffey, Martin Delany, Pap Singleton, and Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, who portrayed outstanding, courageous, and noble expressions, the majority of these returnees have been cut adrift from their true African personality and converted into Negroes and West Indians or imitation white people. The Americo-Liberians made slaves out of other Africans in Liberia. In fact, the record shows that they sold these Africans to the Arabs and white people, which eventually caused a president and a vice president to resign. The Americo-Liberians were taskmasters for the United States imperialists. As a result of the Berlin Conference, large sections of Liberia were given to England and France to add to their colonial empires in Africa. Greetings, Anthony McPhail and Bwana Haguziki. The Constitution of Liberia is similar to that of America. As a matter of fact, the Constitution, government, and overall way of life were patterned after those in the United States of America. Their flag is red, white, and blue. The official language is English. The American dollar is the Liberian dollar. When the European powers were establishing the colonial conquest of Africa, Liberia became an American protectorate. At the last election, President Tubman placed his hand on the Christian Bible when he was being sworn in. They tell me that he's one of those jackleg preachers. Tubman and his entire staff were dressed up like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Claw, hammer, coattails, hi-hats, spats, and all in 100-degree weather. Marcus Garvey's venture with Liberia brought out the worst in the Black race. Here was Garvey and the UNIA with a program of Universal Organization for the Black Race, Universal Emancipation for the Black Race, Redemption of the Continent of Africa for the Africans, those at home and abroad, and the United States of Africa, a Black superpower committed and dedicated to the security and welfare of Black people everywhere. Here was Liberia, an African nation founded for the African people returning from captivity in the Americas, underpopulated, underdeveloped, and one of the two so-called independent nations of Africa. Between 1920 and 1924, Marcus Garvey sent several delegations to Liberia to discuss with the Liberian government a resettlement and development program designed to make the country a Black superpower so that would lead Black people to progress and advancement. 2 reports came back from Liberia. 1, the land was good and plentiful for agriculture and industrial development. 2, the leaders were corrupt, crude, superstitious, and vicious, bordering on savagery and barbarism. Black Magus says, the UAE is currently buying land in Liberia and attaching it to a new cryptocurrency, then selling it back to Liberians. Marcus Garvey decided to play down the second part of the report until the organization formed a base in Liberia. Consequently, he reached an agreement with the Liberian government that tracts of land be set aside for the resettlement of African people in the Americas to Africa and for the economic development of Liberia. Marcus Garvey began mobilizing the people for resettlement and raising money to purchase the equipment for economic development. A ship was to be purchased for this project, one of the several procured by the Black Star Line, later the Black Cross Navigation and Trading Company. Wild enthusiasm gripped the whole race. The European colonial powers in Africa became alarmed by the activities of Marcus Garvey in Liberia. England and France had previously seized some of the land in Liberia. Now they protested to the Liberian government, threatening further seizure of land and hinted at possibly making Liberia a European colony. These colonialists also protested to the United States government for permitting Marcus Garvey to operate from the USA and for letting their protectorate, Liberia, behave so independently. In response to this protest, the United States summoned her number 1 arch Uncle Tom, W.E.B. Du Bois, to represent the USA at the second inauguration of President King of Liberia and delivered a promise of a $5 million grant. So Du Bois went over there to bribe them. He was used as a tool. At the time, Du Bois was a champion for integration. With a white woman named Mary White Ovington, he helped found the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or It Is for Certain People, the NAACP. Du Bois was champion of something else he called the Talented Tenth, which called for the 10% achieving academic excellence in European education, etc. Du Bois was the highest educated Negro in the world. He had more degrees than a thermometer. Du Bois was one of white people's experiments with the Negro and his learning disabilities and his learning abilities. Many of them had doubt to whether a Negro could learn like a white person. They had been conditioned that way for several centuries. Du Bois greatly opposed the Black independence, in particular, the Back to Africa philosophy of Marcus Garvey. He also fought Booker T. Washington tooth and nail on Washington's program for Black economic solvency and self-determination. So Du Bois was against everybody. When Booker T. Washington died, Du Bois turned his guns on Marcus Garvey and the UNIA. From the pages of the Crisis magazine, the literary organ of the NAACP, Du Bois attacked the program of the UNIA and the character and physical appearance of Marcus Garvey. He called Garvey too short, Black, and ugly to lead the race, implying that leadership should continue to come from the light-skinned mulatto. Du Bois was proud of being light and openly boasted about his appearance. The white American government summoned Du Bois, made him ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary in his mission to Liberia, with orders for King to repudiate Liberia's agreement with Garvey. Du Bois was the United States government. He had the absolute power to speak for the government on this task, which he executed successfully. The king was a jellyfish Negro scared of white people. He was unduly elated over his own importance and had disdain for Africa. King repudiated his agreement with Garvey and the UNIA. He arrested the technicians and forward parties of the UNIA. He confiscated the UNIA's equipment, banned all Garveyites from Liberia, and deported members of the UNIA. This treacherous act on the part of the king, who threw the Black world into a disarray and confusion. Here were Black people deeply in love with Africa. They organized and raised money to resettle in Africa after receiving an agreement from Africa to come on. Now, here was Africa telling these Black people, no, the deal is off. We don't want you. Don't come here. Africa was even asking the white people to help the dispersed Africans from returning, to help keep the dispersed Africans from returning to their continent. To add insult to injury, the same land that was allocated for the resettlement of Africans in the Americas was subsequently allocated to Firestone Rubber Company, a white American company that has made billions from that land. The natives milk whose rubber trees and run the rubber plantations for 50 cents a day today, when and if they get paid. The Americo-Liberian government receives the pay and gives whatever it wants, whenever it wants. Firestone tried to raise the pay to $1 a day, but Tubman and his Americo-Liberian gang refused to allow this. They had many natives working their Americo-Liberian plantations for 50 cents a day and wanted it to stay that way. As a matter of fact, they were thinking about reducing it to 25 cents a day. President King never did get the $5 million grant. As late as the 1930s, the Liberian government was found guilty of indulging in slavery. The president and vice president were forced from office because of this. The USA made Liberia an American military base during World War II from 1941 to 1945, and has been in charge of Liberia's finances, development, and import exports ever since. The USA and Liberia have a mutual defense treaty. Taking all the facts into consideration, it is easy to see that Liberia is an extension of white imperialism. A group of black expatriates from the USA and the West Indies form a clique, the Americo-Liberians, which are the dictatorial leaders fronting for white imperialism. Kenya. All is not lost. We still have the Mau Mau in Kenya. The Black people of Kenya are waging armed struggle against European colonialism for national independence. I wrote an article on this in the latest issue of the Street Speaker magazine under the title Jomo Kenyatta, Man of Africa, that gives you a detailed background of Kenya, and Jomo Kenyatta. At the turn of the 20th century, the land-hungry British colonial exploiters focused their greedy and covetous eyes on the rich, healthful highlands of Kenya. I have also written an article, Does Mau Maoism Presage Africa's Liberation?, which will greatly supplement my article, Jomo Kenyatta, Man of Africa. The British had a master plan, the BB Plan, which called for the extermination of Africans and for the replacement of the population with the derelicts from Europe. But when the British went to Kenya, they found a happy and healthy people tending their flocks, farming their land, hunting game, and trading with each other. A people who asked only to be left at peace with the world and in communion with nature. 30 years later, all the fertile land has been taken away from the legal heirs and owners, Black natives, and given to any European derelict that wanted land. It is against this background of abuse, exploitation, and tyranny that Jomo Kenyatta decided that his life would be dedicated to the cause of leading people back to freedom and the way of life that was once theirs. Kenyatta realized that militant action would one day be needed if the British were to be evicted from Kenya. After heading many delegations to the British colonial office, presenting many petitions of righteous grievances of his people against the barbarous white settlers, and being ignored by the British, Kenyatta realized that the British were implementing their master plan, namely exterminating the native Black people and resettling the land with white refugees from Europe. Kenyatta realized that if his people were to survive, their survival would be purchased with the blood of all brave sons of Africa. With the termination of World War II, the entire Asiatic world became passionately devoted to nationalism. Here, a wise leadership carefully manipulated the mass momentum created by the newfound doctrine. Asiatic nationalism was pitted against European colonialism. Nationalism won. The white power trust was crushed and swept away, and with it, the pseudo-assumption of European infallibility. Africa, through it all, assumed the pose of a neutral spectator. As India and Burma evicted the English from their lands, as Indonesia used force of arms to run the Dutchmen out of their country, Africa smiled. Mau Maoism is helping Africa undergo a psychological transition, influenced to a major degree by the dynamic doctrine of Africa for the Africans, enunciated by the late Honorable Marcus Garvey. African nationalism has taken deeper roots in East Africa than it has in West Africa, mainly because the leadership in the East is composed of those who remained in Africa and who remained close to African culture. West Africa is being promoted as the intelligentsia and advanced thought in Africa, while the East Africans are being portrayed as backward, savage, uncivilized people for whom the white man is a savior and a blessing. The truth of the matter is that the black people of Kenya, long before the white man left his caves in Europe, and while the whites were still practicing cannibalism and feasting on the flesh of their conquered dead in Europe, they had developed a flourishing civilization 21,000 years before the advent of Jesus Christ. The people of Kenya were living in civilized societies before the advent of the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian gods. The origin of man and the rudiments of civilization can be traced to the Congolese, Sudanese, Ethiopian, Kenyan, Tanganyikan, and Ugandan people. There is a tribe that lives mainly on the Ethiopian Sudanese border named the Cromandis. That fellow Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight boxing champion, resembles the typical Cromandi. The Cromandis have long been considered the scholars of mankind. They can tell you the history of every language, art, science, religion, and overall culture of the world. They are master linguists. The Cromandis can translate, speak, and write fluently in the languages of the world past and present. They acknowledge that Ge'ez, a native language of Ethiopia, is the oldest living language today. Ge'ez was spoken by the Black people of East Africa long before the Arabs, Asians, Europeans, and others learned how to talk. And now his thoughts on the Black woman. The oldest statue in the world depicting beauty and grace of the Black woman can be found in the Sudan. Nefertiti, wife of one of the early African pharaohs of Egypt, has been labeled the goddess of beauty down through the years. The Greeks Europeanized Nefertiti and call her Venus. We of the ANPM declare that if there is any physical beauty in the world, then it is incarnate in the physical likeness of people and the things that are of our race and heritage. We emphatically deny all standards of beauty that do not represent the vibrant characteristics of the African race. White psychology and white propaganda have done a damaged job on the Black woman as a symbol of beauty in order to sell that foul, out of shape, gruesome white woman as the symbol of feminine beauty. The beautiful full lips of the Black woman, along with her affectionate disposition, have been known to drive men mad just to kiss and hold her. It is these beautiful full lips of ours that allow us to enjoy kisses, and our broad noses do not get in the way of our kissing. It is a natural thing with us. We are made for it. You take a white man and a white woman, they never learn how to kiss. It is considered, whenever they learn how to kiss, it is considered a major accomplishment. The white man and his woman are considered celebrities, stars. They get big salaries. They are filmed or appear on television. The great event, a white man kissing a white woman. It does take some ingenuity on their part with those big long noses and lipless cave mouths. One has to turn his head a little to the left and the other a little to the right in order for those noses not to clash. Once in the right position, they ease close to each other until the two cave mouths meet. They can't rush it. They must ease in because they could break their noses trying to kiss each other. With the Black man and the Black woman, smack bam, mwah, instantly from any position, right away, anytime. As you look at the Black woman coming towards you with all those lovely shapes and curves, it is like looking at the rhythmic waves of the ocean when she turns around. Wow! That is where the joy begins. The queen of all women is what Marcus Garvey called Black women in his poem, The Black Woman. Marcus Garvey also told the Black woman that she has been dethroned through the weakness of her man. Just as the white psychologists and white propagandists reversed the Black and white woman in the field of beauty, they also used their mojo and whammy on the Black man. They reversed the proud, aggressive, arrogant African warrior into a fawning, flunky caste man, the staunchest defender of white supremacy and the loudest defamer of Africa and everything pertaining to it. The Black man in his original 60 is the original 60-minute man. His backbone is strong and flexible. His backbone is strong and more flexible than the white man's. Polygamy is a natural arrangement for the long and good servicing Black man. The white man with his weak back and rhythmless movement is a natural monogamous animal who uses his head for more than a hat rack to compensate for his deficiencies, if you know what I mean. He has convinced the Negro to ape his arm, to the Negro to ape him in this. The Black man's weakness has caused him and the Black woman to be dethroned, and he has lost the respect of the unknowing and unthinking Black woman, which is the majority of them. The behavior of the Black man does not inspire respect. The same is true of the Black woman and child. In the South, he is very passive, quiet, and obedient in the company of whites. You would think that the cast man was made of grease by the way he slides to the back of the bus in public carriers and quietly sits in his designated place. The same cast man comes to Harlem and knocks down everybody in his way getting on the bus. He is loud, boisterous, vulgar, and is ready to challenge the world. His aim is primarily to hurt Black people. Being denied the protection and dignity that is due her, the Black woman diverts to a scrounging two-bit prostitute for every white derelict that comes into the Black community. When the Black woman is downtown, she openly ignores and disrespects the Black man. Today we will call them city girls. Damn few of them will speak to a Black man downtown. Many Black men are onion sack mammies on the community today. You see her getting up early in the morning before the white man's store open. She goes to the store and knocks on the door. The white man lets her in and leads her to the onion sack in exchange for some groceries. These big, fat-bellied Jewish merchants flatter the ignorant Black woman while selling her meat and other products. While Angie is giggling and squirming over the flattery, the Jew rests his big fat belly on the scale and charges the dumb negress for 2 pounds of his belly. He also has some lead weights that he slips onto the scale. The Jew is a short weight artist, and Angie is the world's biggest sucker. Before the Italian-Ethiopian War, the Italian was the major ice cream man up here, and he had a field day with the caste woman. One day, a Black man was coming out of the subway and struck up a conversation with the Italian iceman. During the course of the conversation, a Black woman from across the street waved toward the Black man and the Italian. Not knowing the woman was the Black man's wife, the Italian remarked, "I hope that she has some money the next time I deliver her ice. Her big behind is all right sometimes, but I need money. I'm tired of her behind. I need the money." The black man can remove his weakness and the gross disrespect shown him if he would implement the Buy Black campaign. The implementation of the campaign will make the black man the winner, controller, and dominator of commerce, business life, and the body politic in his community. The black man can give the black woman the protection and dignity she deserves. He can have her treated like a lady and have the black children accorded with the condescension that children are entitled to. Buy Black is the key. It is the scientific way to be free. One cause, one goal, one destiny. Those are his thoughts on Ethiopia, Haiti, Liberia, and the black woman. And as you can see, the black woman was thoroughly disrespected at that time and was in need of redemption, similar to her being in need of redemption today. Now, we're going to read Naive Africans and Civil Rights. For those of you who can think, pay attention to the other man around you. Don't try to get all the wealth for yourself. When a man makes $1 million for himself, he has generally made millions for a lot of other people. You can always work a good trick twice. All we have to do is stick with our program uncompromisingly. Orthodox African nationalism is pure. It can't be mixed with anything. Eventually, the African leadership will be straightened out. Things can't go on the way they are forever. The coups in Africa are good, even though the coupsters are stooges of European colonialism. One of these coups will be the coup of coups. The real, genuine African nationalists will take over, and that will be it. There are no African armies of any significant force. Nobody takes the African military threats seriously. Their emphasis has not been on building an African army capable of defending themselves, not to mention liberating the continent of Africa. Liberia could not muster 5,000 men. Ghana couldn't muster 15,000. None of those little two-bit nations could muster any significant force individually. But if they were to lump all their men into an all-African army dedicated to the redemption and protection of the whole of Africa, all of those states could be secured. Most of the officers in the present African armies owe their allegiances to either Britain, France, or America, with America replacing the rest through coups. The hand of the CIA is everywhere. The invisible government of the cracker designed to subvert and overthrow all governments that are not swayed to the cracker's line of thought. Africa is in America's pocket. They don't have to worry about the present leadership in Africa. The same gang that exploited Africa under the colonial setup are exploiting Africa through the present day quasi-leadership via neocolonialism. The cracker is playing for time. Vietnam has him preoccupied. He can't get down to his plan to wipe out the black race and resettle Africa with refugees from Europe. The British BB plan called for the aforementioned. The American cracker is promoting the picture that the caste is ignorant, immoral, riotous, diseased, and a burden to society. The cracker is building up his own case in order to justify the extermination of the caste. Conditions have a way of conducting themselves until the best laid plans go astray sometimes. The cracker figured out that the caste is so goddamn dumb that he can do anything to the caste. He reasoned this by way of the caste admires and apes him. The caste is infatuated with European culture, European religion, European ideas. The caste is actually a black European. The cracker figured that unless Marcus Garvey was a musician, the cast were through. Garvey fooled them and organized our 11 million black people under the UNIA. The cracker was forced to frame and later murder Marcus Garvey in order to lull the cast back to sleep. But all is not lost. There is Vietnam. We hope the cracker and the Chinaman will fight forever. That will give us time to get our people. Even though things look bad now, unless the cracker can deal with the Chinaman, we don't have too much to worry about. The African leadership is childishly naive to a point beyond virtue. They believe that they need the white man. The African nationalism is alien to Africa. Our biggest battle will be fought with the African at home. They must be detribalized and made into Africans who recognize race as the basis for organizing for survival. Tashaka started the process over 150 years ago. Don't let anybody tell you that it is not a race. The United Nations was built to preserve white supremacy and the white race. Old cripple Roosevelt and other European swindlers of his time drew up a plan for the UN, whereas the nations poor in natural resources, such as Europe and America, were able to exploit the other nations who have sufficient resources, such as Africa, Asia, and South America. And regardless of whether the Secretary General or the President of the Assembly be European, Asian, African, or what have you, the UN remains a tool of white supremacy. Whenever the cracker wants to subvert the caste masses, he always gets a caste stooge or Uncle Tom to play the part of the goat in the slaughterhouse. Martin Luther King Jr. is the biggest enemy of black opportunity when you check the record. You will find that not only is he an agent, but a paid agent of white supremacy to confuse the black masses. But Martin is not unique. There are Roy Wilkins, Whitney Young, James Farmer, and various so-called leaders of the integration movement. Whenever a caste flunky gets out of line, a line of caste flunkies are waiting to take his place. This is the damnedest place in the world. The rotten weather should be enough to make the caste want to leave here. Your nose is supposed to smell and your feet are supposed to run. But here your nose runs and your feet smell. You know that we must get out of here. In order to do this, we have to understand ourselves, study the program, and work together. At least now we don't have that horrible color situation to deal with. Marcus Garvey took that down. When Marcus Garvey came here, all the so-called leaders of the caste were very light-skinned Negroes in churches, businesses, organizations, and elsewhere. St. Philip's Church here in Harlem had its pews arranged according to complexion. If you were light, bright, and near white, you had all the choice pews up front. If you were brown or tan, you sat in the middle pews. But if you were black complexion, you had to be unusually bright and financially well off to rate a balcony seat. Marcus Garvey tore all this down. He attacked the NAACP and the rest of the caste organizations on that issue. Marcus Garvey realized that would be beyond the lifespan of one man. All he could do was do the best he could, and somebody would have to come behind him and do the best he could, and so on down the line. We must keep on keeping on until we put that building up and get out of here. One cause, one goal, one destiny. So as you can see, W.E.B. Du Bois was a tool of white supremacy. He was being used by the United States government to oust Garvey, and we kind of sort of knew some of that history, but I didn't know that they had promised Liberia $5 million that they never gave to them. I didn't know that. I also didn't know that Marcus Garvey had written poems about the Black woman. I guess I got to sharpen up my Garvey skills, my Garvey knowledge. But yeah, what do you guys think? You guys have to let me know. Did anyone want to come on and talk about anything that they heard tonight? Because Carlos A. Cooks had a lot to say about a lot of different things. Let's see what the comments said. Black Magus enjoyed the part about the Black woman. He said he was about to go kiss his wife right now because crackers don't have the same option of kissing that we have. Bakari, the fight is he lost. I say, Bakari, the fight he lost. I say he lost. I don't move. I don't make excuses. So yeah, as you can see, Carlos A. Cooks gives us the missing pieces of history and talks to us about the fact that some of these people that we're told to revere were actually working against the overall goals that we had, because African nationalism is the answer to our problems. Integrationists and assimilationists are working against our overall goals because they like their preferred position in the white society. They enjoy the privileges that they get from white society. They don't even want to let the Black people that want to do something different go. They would rather have them working as slaves because they know that they will never be fully amalgamated and assimilated and integrated into a white economy. So in order to continue feeling good about themselves, they have to keep the Black people here. They have to keep Black people here in order to feel good about themselves. So I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Thank you, Black Magus, Brother Bakari, Sister Raw, Bawana Haguziki, The Forecast, Anthony McPhail, The Pro-Black Perspective, Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. And thank you to all my new subscribers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for my cash apps. You can cash at me at rmatron. That's RMATRON. Or you can PayPal me at revolutionarymatron@gmail.com. I will be back tomorrow night talking about Carlos Cook's ideas on religion. We're going to read and see what he thought about religion and one other topic. So I will see you tomorrow, guys. Peace.